Yeah, this sword here, that's just wonderful because it's halfway between the late Sparta type swords with the more stubby fittings. It still has this plate, this pommel plate, okay. Yeah. So, which means that if you do throw the weapon forward, it doesn't leave the hand because there's a rest, so you don't lose it. Yeah. With later swords, you have different shapes because the combat requirements change. So this is really interesting because that's a contemporary of the Sparta type swords that the Vikings used. But this is most typical for the Frankish military. Yeah. So this probably was used in conjunction with a domed round shield because there are reasons why they changed the hilt. Oh. Yeah, so the way.
So actually, when you see a weapon like that. That has sort of a backstop.
Yeah.
A lot of people always imagine that you kind of clench your weapon and chop with it really hard. Yeah. But this weapon, it's the blade still being so flexible, and with the backdrop, it's like a very loose grip. Actually.
You name it. And if you think about anything you do, any tool you use, be it cutting something in the kitchen or hammering a nail into the wall. Yeah. Which tool do you actually
clench?
Yes. Yeah. Just for a split second maybe, but usually your fingers are moving all the time.
Yeah. It's like when you I remember many years ago I was building an Iron Age house, and we were working with these with reconstructions from the Illorup find.
Okay.
Those
yeah,
axes.
wonderful.
And we were testing them to see which axe is good for all the different procedures.
I see.
And in the beginning I was very uncertain. I was a new carpenter. I didn't know what I was doing. So I was clenching the axe all the time. And after a week my hands were like totally dead. There was no life in them. Because all the, when you hit something with the axe...
You get the recoil.
And my hands, they just went like that. But when I became more certain of what I was doing, when I knew my axe better, the confidence, then I was able to, the second the blade gets in contact with the wood, I let go. Yes. I lose the grip. Yeah. And but for the first week, I was very very uncertain, and I was like clenching it because I was so afraid that I might,
But I mean, what you're describing is our usual learning curve. One of my favorite examples is learning to write. Like when you have a piece of crayon, a piece of chalk, and you're standing in front of the board, in front of class, and you have to master this complex shape of, say, letter R, whatever. At the same time, exert the right amount of pressure so that the chalk remains on the board, and when you're a total beginner, you go like, you just break it off because you just tense up, too many things to learn. Nowadays, no problem. We just pick it up and we write an R. It's a piece of cake. But this is the way we learn. We are too tense. So being tense overall and all the time just means you are using up a lot of energy. Yeah. Plus, you are slowing yourself down. We need your expertise here, Sarah.
Now
this here. Yeah. This looks like the remains of the scabbard mouth are still in place. Yeah. Now this is the way they are usually built up is you may or may not have a lining to a wooden core. So the sword scabbard will always consist of a wooden core, which may be of slate construction. Sometimes there's a lining. Oftentimes around the wooden core you can find textile and or leather or both.
This seems like there's some sort of residue here, but I can't tell.
Well, there's residue here too, so this was probably glued on at one point. Yeah. I'm not sure, but this looks a bit like, I mean, this here to me looks like some, well, it may be historical glue. Well, this is the tang that passes through the pommel, and then here it is peened. But there's a jelly-like substance here. It may be
It could be a filler to stop it from rattling.
Yes, but I doubt that a 1,000-year-old glue would still be brownish and translucent. So this is, my guess is this is modern to keep it in place.
Okay.
But anyway, these remnants here and here, they are probably remnants of the organic grip.
Yeah.
And this
looks
here,
organic too, like something has been lying on top of it.
That's very possible because in the what's it called, in Großmähren, there's a fortification where a lot of swords were found in Greater Moravia, and they were found in burial contexts, and all of them were covered with. So likely the swords were sheathed. And then either a cloak was lying on top of the buried person.
I actually don't know if this is from burial. This would I don't know where it's from.
This one is this one was found in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, so that's on the
by the
southern coast of the Baltic.
Yeah, but
it's actually pretty close to where I live now.
But is it a grave or?
We don't. No. I don't know about the context.
No.
I don't know about the context, but comparable swords of exactly the same time period have been found, and they were in burial contexts, which is quite interesting because the Franks didn't do that at the time anymore. So this may well be a sword that was actually used by a Slavic warrior. Quite possible. Probably a ruling caste who adopted Frankish equipment. Yeah. And then you may find swords like that in burial context. But with this one, I don't know. I mean, it just says that it was.
I'm being cold.
So if you can just film this here. Yeah. So this is Kreis Parchim, Gemarkung Neuburg, and it's a Wikingerschwert, a Viking sword. 1000 nach der Zeitrechnung. Oh, apparently this was written down by a GDR archaeologist, because in the West you say nach Christus, in the East you said nach der Zeitrechnung. Anyway, so about 1000 AD, found by Neuburg, and it was recovered by an excavator shovel, so a power shovel from the River Elde. It's fortunate that it's not broken, because a lot of the swords we find from rivers are broken because the shovels of the power shovels destroy them. So do you want to take a closer look? Okay, so here's the sword. It's probably a 10th century sword, and very typical hilt. Nicely molds into your hand, as you can see. Very organic design. The design of the blade is still very typical. We have lost a lot of the top part of the blade due to corrosion. I cannot detect any inscription, but then again, there's a lot of corrosion going on here. Interestingly, as you have already seen, parts of the scabbard are still rusted to the crossguard. You can also see the layers of the steel here. So any product from a forge prior to the 19th century was...
Hold on, I'll just get a shot.
Prior to the 19th century was welded and folded and hammered out, not necessarily with patterns, but in layers. All right, we shall now take measures of that wonderful sword. It actually feels really light, so let's first weigh it. You can turn off the camera.